Now, Hamish de Bretton-Gordon is a defence analyst and joins us now live from London. Hamish, thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. Now, the world is debating whether or not it should declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Let me ask you a very plain and simple question. What would it take for the West to declare a no-fly zone over Ukraine?
Well, it would take an awful lot of jets, and also I expect drones to make sure that we could cover it extensively. Now, of course, this was talked about a great deal in Syria over the last few years and was discounted for a whole host of reasons. A lot of people thinking it would just be too dangerous. But I think we ought to look at it in a slightly different guise here. And actually, as you said in your piece, Putin is really concerned and really worried about a no-fly zone and what that might impact his operations. So I think we should certainly start doing the detail for getting it in place. And there are some unsubstantiated reports that he might be moving some of his tactical nuclear weapons in place. And we should say that if they are used or moved further, then we will enact a no-fly zone, because I think it's the thing that he fears most, because without his aircraft, he's going to find it very difficult to defeat the Ukrainian soldiers and militias on the ground.
Hamish, why do you think the Ukrainian president is so keen on declaring a no-fly zone over his country? Why do you think he thinks a no-fly zone would stop Russia from attacking Ukraine?
Well, I think most of the Russian attacks that have been successful against the Ukraine military are coming from the air. They're air attacks. We're seeing that the Russian military, its tank battalions and regiments, seem to be in poor order, badly trained, poor morale, and actually running out of logistics. So the only thing that he's being successful at the moment is his aircraft. If we prevent his aircraft from flying, then I think the Russian army could well be in retreat and could be beaten. So he's very keen that we don't close the skies to his aircraft.
Okay, Hamish, now, again, President Zelenskyy has been calling on the West to provide Ukraine with more military equipment. Now, most recently, NATO announced that some of its countries would be providing weapons to Ukraine. The European Union, in an unprecedented move, allowed some European nations to finance military equipment for Ukraine. But putting all of this into context here now, is that going to, or perhaps to what extent do you think all this help is going to help Ukraine in resisting Russian attacks?
Well, it's certainly going to help. I think a lot of the anti-tank guided missiles that have been provided by the EU and the UK and the Americans are having a really significant effect, and we're seeing that in the amount of Russian tanks and armoured vehicles that are being destroyed. But I expect what they really need is aircraft and some of the sophisticated weaponry that the UK and the US and the European militaries have. And whether we can provide that, I don't know. I think the Turkey supplying drones is a massive impact, and I would certainly like to see the US and the UK following Turkey by providing drones as well, because they really make a difference in this type of warfare. So I think it's all helping, but we need to do more if we're going to see Ukraine survive in some way intact so they can go forward in the future.
Okay, now before I let you go very quickly, Hamish, I'm sure you're aware that Russia is a massive military might. I was having this discussion with another analyst about a few days ago, and he said that perhaps the only country that could match Russia's military might is the United States. So do you think all this help, drones, even fighter jets, do you think that is eventually going to stop this war?
Well, let's hope so. What we've got to avoid is it turning into an East-West conflict, a conflict with NATO, because that would be disastrous. I expect NATO has the conventional power to defeat the Russians, but I think if they were being defeated by NATO, they would probably go for their nuclear weapons. And absolutely, we must avoid at all costs some nuclear conflict in this area. So I think we've got to really keep going and try and bring Putin to the negotiation table before we get into the battles in the cities like Kiev where I think there is possibly going to be mass casualties on both sides.
All right, Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.